I'm letting everyone in. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. We're thrilled to have you here tonight with us for this very exciting panel discussion. We'll give everyone a chance to get settled in. We have a great response to tonight's program. I'm Judy Herbst, the Executive Director of Savvy Ladies. We're just delighted to have you all here tonight with us. Welcome, welcome.
There's a lot of us here. Wow.
It's an outstanding panel. You're really going to enjoy the conversation. Yes, hello, hello, thank you. We're thrilled to have you all here. We'll give everyone another minute or two to join. I want you to know we had over 300 women respond, actually 353 as of 4 o'clock today, respond and sign up for this really exciting and important and very important conversation we're going to have tonight. So as I said, welcome. I'm Judy Herbst, the Executive Director of Savvy Ladies. It really is my privilege to bring you today this panel discussion we're going to have. There's so many new people. There's also so many names I recognize. So we're thrilled that you're coming back for more programming with Savvy Ladies. Savvy Ladies is, we're all about financial empowerment and financial literacy for all women. And for everyone who may not know and all the programs we do, what we have that is very unique is our helpline. So the Savvy Ladies free financial helpline is available for all women. And what we like to say is that we equip women with the educational tools and financial guidance to give you real answers, honest answers, and strategies to enhance your financial well-being. And that's exactly what tonight is all about. We're going to talk about financial well-being, how to reduce financial anxiety. So many women come to Savvy Ladies and to use the Savvy Ladies helpline and have a high level of financial anxiety. We want to help prepare you so you have a better course of action to put forth for your own finances and reduce that anxiety, give you confidence, and bring you into a state of financial well-being that you're satisfied with. So our free financial helpline is available to all of you. So feel free, we'll drop the link into the chat. So at any time you have a personal question, feel free to come to the helpline tonight, tomorrow, anytime that is convenient to you. We welcome you and we match you with a financial advisor. They offer their pro bono services and you will be matched and your question will be answered. It is an amazing vehicle, and we're just delighted to be able to serve and offer this service to all the women who are looking for that financial advice. So what are we here for tonight? To talk about financial mindset. Our Get Savvy Health panel tonight is around the 4 C's. I loved it. It's culture, confidence, community, and communication we're going to talk about today. And I really want to thank our sponsors. We couldn't be here without our sponsors that are so generous in their support of Savvy Ladies. The JP Morgan Wealth Management team, we thank you so much for your continued support. And Modera Wealth for also supporting us and being advocates of financial literacy for women. We thank our sponsors for helping build financial confidence and well-being for women. So valuable. So who is on the panel tonight? I'm going to take a moment to introduce our panel and then turn it over because that is what we're here for. So I am thrilled to be able to introduce Kathleen Burns Kingsbury, who is our moderator. She is a rock star. You can see just in her bio here on the screen to go through. She is a podcast host. She is a psychology expert and and coach of Breaking Money Silence podcast. So that's what we're here about. It's breaking money silence. You need to ask money questions. And Kathleen knows exactly what those questions are and how to get you comfortable in asking those questions. She is an expert in financial psychology. You're getting the theme of this is our theme tonight. And she is an amazing person, an advocate. And I am delighted to have her here tonight. She was recommended by many people here. Manisha Thakor recommended Kathleen. I reached out to her. She jumped at the chance and to be part of our community and share her insights to moderate this wonderful panel tonight. So Kathleen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Next, Barbara Archer is joining us. She is a partner at Hightower St. Louis. Hightower have been strong advocates of Savvy Ladies over the years. We're very pleased to have Barbara here joining us tonight. I love that she has a quote that I pulled that she shares for her. She says, for me, wealth is knowing what is enough to live and envision life and being grateful for every day along the way. This is a healthy mindset. She hosts a podcast as well, Keeping the Well in Wealthy. A terrific woman. You'll be thrilled to hear her insights as she shares what it means to live and achieve a healthy mindset. Asia Evans is here tonight with us. I am thrilled that Asia agreed to join our panel tonight. She is a financial therapist. She's a licensed mental health counselor, and she specializes in financial therapy. Did you even know there was such a thing as financial therapy? There is, and Asia is one of these special keynote professionals that educates and teaches and counsels on this. I love that she's made her pillar of work around therapy, and financial therapy has become her focus. And she's a woman who lives on a mission to get more people engaged in living their best life while attuning to their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors around money. This is what we're going to speak about today. You're going to love what she has to share. And Nina Jackson from JP Morgan Wealth Management. She's a director, and she is joining us from Chicago, and she is a financial leader in her field. She and I were just talking. This is the perfect time for this panel, and we're thrilled to have Nina join us to share her insights in how building financial wellness is so important to herself personally and to the clients that she works with and works with across her cross-functional teams. Mindy is here joining us, and she is a wonderful advocate and new supporter of Savvy Ladies. She describes herself as her client's personal CFO. I love that. She specializes not only as a certified financial planner, but she's a chartered special needs consultant, which I think is so very valuable and so very important as you build financial wellness and mindset to understand special needs that affect yourself and your family. Very, very important as she works, and she's an activist in serving her community. And Manisha Thakor joining us. She's a dear friend, long-term friend of Savvy Ladies, dear friend of Stacy Francis, our founder. She, I feel, is a rock star and became a quick friend of mine as I joined here as executive director. She brings the joy into a financial mindset. And that is what her business and her mindset is based on. In the book that she authored, Money Zen, is bringing joy to her clients to build confidence and calm around money. So all of the panelists, thank you so much for being here. And Kathleen, I'm going to quickly turn it over to you. Stop sharing my screen and let's start.
It sounds good. I'm excited for this conversation and for all the people who are saying hello in chat. Just before we get started with the panel discussion, I wanted to level set just a little bit. We talked about financial well-being, and that was discussed a couple of times in the introduction. And I just wanted to offer a definition. Your definition may be slightly different, but in general, when I think of financial well-being, I think it's the ability to meet our short-term and long-term financial objectives also to have the confidence to make good financial decisions. That doesn't mean perfect financial decisions. It means sound financial decisions. And also to have some insight and satisfaction with our relationship with money. And so what you'll notice in that definition is there's the nuts and bolts, right? There's the technical side of finance, the numbers, all the things that we have been trained in or know about. And there's also the emotional piece, where the satisfaction with money, the confidence with money. And so when we were pulling this panel together, one of the things we thought about are what are the contributors to financial well-being? And that's where the 4 C's came from. So again, that's culture. How does our culture and our family history play a role in our relationship with money and how we make decisions? Then from there, how do we communicate about money? Do we communicate about money? Is there a way in which the money talk taboo that many of us experience in our society gets in the way of us having those conversations? If so, what is the cost and how can we break through that? Then you have confidence, right? Why is it important to be confident around money? Well, it's important to be confident because you have to not only have knowledge, but you have to feel like you can make decisions and confidently move forward. Again, that's not perfection. That's knowing enough on who to lean on, who to ask questions, and how to make better decisions for yourself. And the beauty of financial confidence is no matter where you are today, you can build up that muscle and develop that into your superpower. And last, and I don't want to say it's most important, but I think it's very, very important, is community. And that's what we're doing this evening. How do you find a group of professionals, of women, of friends, family to get together and talk about this taboo thing called money? How do you engage in these conversations? If you are someone who's used Savvy Ladies before, congratulations. This is a great community to do that in. But our panel of experts will talk a little bit more about creative ways you can do that in your own life, who should be in your community, and who can you trust. So we're going to delve into all of those different aspects of financial well-being. Because I want this to be interactive, I encourage you to ask questions along the way. Even if we don't get to them right in real time right away, we'll try to leave some time for Q&A, and we'll try to break in from time to time and get those questions. I also would encourage you to think about, in this moment, if you had to rate your financial well-being 1 to 10, 1 being it's not great at all, 10 being I'm a rock star, I knock it out of the park, or somewhere in between where most of us live. Just throw in that number in the chat. And it doesn't matter whether you're a 1 or a 10 or somewhere in between. It's just like we're level setting right now. And so great, the numbers are coming in and we can all look in chat and see, there's 8s, there's 3s, there's 4s, there are 2s, 5s, the numbers go on. So it's just a level set. And then when we have this conversation towards the end, we'll kind of revisit your financial well-being and just get a sense of, was there any impact from this conversation? So wherever you are, know that the goal is not to go from a 1 to a 10. The goal is to just bump it up a little, even if that's a quarter step, and moving the needle forward, whether it's, in whatever of the 4 C's might resonate with you. So I want to move right to the panel, and I want to hear from each of the panelists just a quick 2 or 3 minutes on why is financial well-being so important to you, and what do you think is vital for women to know about this topic? I know that's a big ask in a short period of time, but let's start with Nina. Nina, tell us a little bit about your why and what you think is vital about this topic.
And so again, my name is Nina Jackson, and I'm thrilled to be here today, Market Director of Wealth Management at JP Morgan Well. I am a girl who's born and raised in Detroit. I still live here in Detroit, and I come from a middle-class family. And my why is centered around education, opportunity, and empowerment. Financial well-being plays right into that, right? If you don't assess where you are in your financial well-being, you can't really confront the biases that you may have, or the mindsets that may hinder you in pursuing opportunity and allowing yourself to be empowered along the way. Again, my background being middle class, being from Detroit, we have like this kind of gritty, scrappy mentality, which I love and has helped me sort of progress throughout my career. I am really privileged, though, that my why, again, empowerment, opportunity, education, is centered and directly aligned with my financial advisors and the team that I lead here. Because the things that we do every day is centered around those three things, right? We educate our clients, we provide financial planning for those clients, and then we align their goals to an asset allocation strategy. And so I am blessed that those two align, but I'd have to say that that those three things are incredibly important to me and centered in my why.
Excellent. Thank you. How about you, Mindy?
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here and to see so many participants joining today. My why is really on this topic is really because financial planning and financial topics are scary. They provoke anxiety. We'll talk about some of that today. And really the best way to get over that is to start talking about it, start educating yourself, and gain confidence around the topic. So the reason that I find it so important is there's many decisions that need to be made within your financial plan. And if you don't talk about it, then you're not going to make those decisions, and you may not reach your financial goals in a way that is most beneficial for you, your loved ones, and your family. And so I really like to spread the word, increase access to this information, and help people to feel that it's not a scary topic. It's something that has been taboo in the past, but we can really all work together to get through that.
Excellent. We'll definitely drill down more into that. How about you, Asia? What are your thoughts about your why and what's vital about this topic?
Thank you for having me and being here. I'm so excited to talk to everybody and just express my passion about financial therapy and financial wellness in general. And I think that my why is just that I realized through my work how frequently people feel really bad about their money, and how feeling bad about their money very quickly turns into them feeling bad about themselves, and how that can impact self-esteem, increase anxiety, and very, unfortunately quickly spiral into depression if it's left unchecked. So having conversations about money, not just about the emotional side, but also about the financial education part of it, is so important. And I just couldn't live with myself for not talking about it, because I too have felt uncomfortable and felt worried about how I was showing up in the world because of some money mistakes or money things I had made in the past. So I just don't want people to feel bad about their money anymore. And that means we have to talk about it.
Excellent. Excellent. How about you, Barbara?
Well, my why is really about inspiring women. I understand that our audience, everyone has a different past. And what I want them to listen to today, just as we do with our own clients here at Hightower, we want them to live in the present and to plan for the future. So it's our job to educate, to work with, I've done this for 40 years, so I'm in several generations, to help families educate their children as well, so that they know what may be coming down the line in the future, and that they build their own confidence to feel powerful and to make good decisions. So our jobs, and many of us on this call, is to guide them through some of those scary times, but to leave behind some of their false impressions of themselves or what they think about money, and to learn how to have that control. So that's why I'm here on the panel today too.
Excellent. Welcome. And last but certainly not least, Manisha, what is your why and what makes this topic vital for women to know about? I think you're still on mute.
Thank you. My why is that my mom taught me from a very young age that money gives women voices and choices. And I believe that with every fiber of my being. So that's why I'm here, to help as many of us have as much control as we possibly can over our voices and choices. And in terms of what's so vital, I just feel that we're not taught personal finance anywhere. I went to Harvard Business School. They don't teach personal finance at Harvard Business School. They teach corporate finance. But it is one of those things we're supposed to just pick up from, the ethosphere. And I feel like coming together in community like this, in the absence of formal financial education programs, which hopefully are on their way one day, lots of good people are doing good work to try and make that happen. But in the absence of that right now, community, I think, is the most powerful way we women can educate ourselves and educate those that we care and love about in our lives.
Excellent. Well, as you can already tell for the folks who are listening in, is that we have a wonderful panel with lots of experience, a lot of diversity, and the themes that I just heard in terms of people's why and why it makes sense that we're gathered here today is really, thinking about what I call money silence, not talking openly and honestly about money, even if it's just a little area of your life, like negotiating. You may be good at other areas, but negotiating is hard. But that money silence gets in the way of women taking care of themselves and taking care of their families. In a worst case scenario, it can lead to money shame and feeling uncomfortable and depression, like Asia talked about. But also Nina and Barbara talked about how you can empower yourself, how you can empower others, how you can be an inspiration. And I think the theme throughout all of and I'm including myself in my why, is really education and getting together and having these conversations is so powerful. So empowered. Sorry, long day. So let's start with culture. And again, if you have a particular question about culture, I want you to put it in the chat. We can see if we can include that in our conversation. But when we talk about culture, I think about it in a couple of different ways. One is we all have this money history, whether we're aware of it or not, kind of all of these thoughts and beliefs and observations we've had over the course of our lives. Usually around age 5, we start to be conscious of this thing called money, and we're picking up on all these different messages. And we develop what's called a money story based on this money history. This money history and our money story then impacts how in the moment we think, feel, and act around money, whether we save, whether we don't save, whether we spend, whether we overspend, all of these things, whether investing is scary. So it's important to look backwards, not to get stuck there, but to look at how am I thinking about money now, and how does my money history impact that? A key part of our money history is our culture, the culture we were raised in, the culture we might have been born in, and also our family culture. And so I want to start with actually Manisha talking a little bit about how somebody's personal culture can impact and influence how they think about money today.
Yeah, so, I'm glad you used the word personal culture. I'm half Indian. My dad is from India and my mom is from upstate New York. And I have always self-identified more with being Indian. And in the Indian culture, generally speaking, women tend not to be encouraged to be involved with family finances, to put it mildly. And if you read the New York Times article this morning about women who essentially have been held captive by their in-laws for not paying dowries and all sorts of reasons. I won't go into it, but the bottom line is, historically, it's been a very patriarchal culture that I come to from a cultural standpoint, but my personal experience of that culture has been completely different. My dad taught me how to use an HP 12C calculator when I was 11. It's a financial calculator, and he showed me how to compound out if I saved my babysitting and lawn mowing money and invested it, how much money I'd have at age 65 if I earn different rates of returns. When I saw how big those numbers were, and my mom's talking about voices and choices, I'm like all over this money thing. And so, there's my culture, and then there's my personal culture, and then then there's the way you see your parents or your primary caretakers deal with money, and that sometimes nothing is perfect. I'll notice my dad tends to be very, very frugal, having grown up, without running water or electricity until he was in his early teens. My mom grew up very in a very blue collar family, and things were always very uncertain, but she had a different attitude. Hers is, well, you never know when everything's going to go to heck in a handbag, so you might as well go spend it now. And so, you can get so many different kinds of messaging, and they don't all send you in the same direction, but kind of peeling back and really thinking about it, as Kathleen said, can be a really powerful exercise to understand why you act the way you act, or why you respond the way you respond, and how you absorb information like you're getting tonight.
Yeah. And what you're talking about is in your own family experience, the broader culture, but then your own family experience, that there are all these different messages. And we also have, many panelists that have many different backgrounds and different messages. So Barbara, tell us a little bit about how your upbringing might have been a little bit different than Manisha, and how you kind of see culture influencing the women that you work with or have influenced you.
Sure. Thank you, Kathleen. I would say, first, I was brought up in a small integrated coal mining community. So yes, my grandparents did have an outhouse. So it's a very different background than many of my peers. But at the time, if you think about the 50s, early 60s, the traditional woman stayed at home. So that's what was modeled for me. And I thought, that's the way it was supposed to be, except I was always a troublemaker. So I was not happy with that role model. And then I had older aunts that I found out were pursuing their own careers, didn't need to be married necessarily to have a lovely life. And I thought, well, I have choices. So even though we learned to live paycheck to paycheck, when I went to college, education was a priority for the family because they knew that's the way you could get out of the situation we were in. So I had a lot of support to go to college, and I worked full-time undergrad and full-time graduate school. So I never had time to spend money. So the benefit of that was that I could stay focused on my long-term goals, and that was to be financially independent. So I would say in our family, what I learned very early on was to have some self-control and to cultivate more self-discipline, not to compare myself to others, not to be subjected to social pressures or have to keep up with someone, because I learned in that small community with my friends and family, we could have a whole lot of fun without any money. So knowing that, the purchasing of stuff wasn't as important. So I was not as material as some of my friends in college. And so it was really helpful in the long run, because when I did graduate and realize I had extra money, I could put it away, build up my emergency fund, start buying company stock, and take really good care of myself by being frugal and living below my means.
Mm-hmm. Great. So definitely some overlap between you two, but some very dramatic differences in how you grew up. Now I have to go to.
I used the slide. I just want to tell Manisha,
Yeah.
I actually used I learned regression analysis with the slide rule. Just got to tell you. There you go. Little difference there.
Some of the Gen Zs on the line are like, what?
What are those two ladies talking about?
Yeah. So Asia, just because you are representing, not just because, but you are representing the financial therapy field, a field that's near and dear to my heart. I do a little bit of it myself, but I'm not as deep in as you are. Tell everybody on the line how can it be useful to identify these cultural influences in moving forward and creating a greater sense of financial well-being?
So I think what you said, Kathleen, about going back to your past and kind of unpacking it and understanding it is pretty much, I don't want to say my whole job, but a large portion of it, to help people understand where the beginning and where the roots of their patterns came from. So a lot of times what you do with your money turns into a habit without you realizing it. So you have financial habits, you have financial behaviors that you think might just be your own, that you're the only person who does this in your family, but that could be because of things that happened while you were growing up. So looking at your roots and identifying potential, and this takes time. So this is not just like I'm sipping my tea and thinking about my roots and my money story. This is something that is gonna, you have to sift through it, and it might bring up some harder memories about you and your family and what it was to grow up and how you felt. So it takes time to just go back and think about, hey, what is the root of this pattern that I do with my money? How come? So I'll use myself as an example. So in, like a lot of people in middle school, when you start to see other people with things and you want the things, and sometimes you can afford the things and sometimes you can't. I grew up in a probably upper middle class family. So we could afford the things, but my parents' priorities were other places. So I had enough to realize like, oh, this is cool, but not so much as some of the other kids that I might have been around. Now today, I find myself like, oh, I have plenty of shoes. But if I see another pair, I'm like, that would be really nice. That would feel really cool for me to have that next pair of shoe or that outfit or, insert here. And for me, really what it is doing is going straight back to that pattern of when I was in middle school and feeling like I would be cool if I had XYZ. And it took me until my 30s to realize that I was just perpetuating that same pattern with my shopping in the past. And it was because that's what made me feel good and potentially could hurt my self-esteem. And, we don't want our self-esteem to be wrapped up in our clothes, but it can help. Like, I'm going to be realistic about it. If you feel like you look good, sometimes that really gives you a boost. So looking at your pattern is going to be really important for you to understand, hey, what am I doing with my money? Is this in spite of how I grew up? Is it despite of like how I grew up? And really taking the time to just understand that so that you can move towards healthier financial decisions.
That makes me want to delete everything in my Zappo app that I've been obsessing about. So I'm going to have to look at that after this.
Yeah, it took me a while, let me tell you, not so much anymore, but definitely when I first got to New York.
Okay.
Oh,
We
no.
could shop together. So what we're talking about is looking back, looking at your culture, looking at your family history is important. Let's move to communication, just because part of what is so important with panels like this and women getting together and working with financial advisors or financial therapists is being able to learn how to communicate about money. Now, I wrote a book called Breaking Money Silence, and one of the stats in that book is that almost half of Americans find talking about money more uncomfortable than talking about religion, politics, death, and dying. And when you look at a study done by UPS, it was a little bit older in 2018, it says 61% of women would rather not talk about money. They'd rather talk about their own death than talk about finances with a friend. So there's not only this reluctance in our society to talk about money, and I would say the feelings and thoughts and beliefs about money, not just the numbers, there's also a higher incidence of women feeling reluctant to engage in these conversations. So I know one of the conversations that Nina's passionate about is the negotiation conversation. That tends to be an area of communication that can be really a struggle. So Nina, in general, do you have some thoughts as to why it's so hard for women to talk about money? And then I loved what you shared about negotiation when we were thinking about this call. So I'd love for you to touch on that as well.
Yeah, so another fun stat is that men are 8 times more likely than women to negotiate their salaries. And that is incredible to me. And I don't know if it's just because of, women in our makeup, or maybe it's our money mindset, as Aja spoke about, or Asia spoke about. I can't pinpoint the reason why that is, but I will say that there is some work that needs to be done around that. I can share with you a story about when I found out that I can and should, by the way, be having money conversations around negotiation of my salary. I was working for a firm and I took the first offer, like, dude, I'm just happy to be here. Like, I'm just excited and thrilled to walk these marbled floors, and I'm just thankful for the opportunity, right? And I remember being at lunch with colleagues, and they were male, and they were talking about their salaries and their negotiation tactics and things that they were doing. And I was thinking to myself, I didn't negotiate. Is that a thing? Can we do that? Right. And by the way, I have had no problem ever since then talking about money, asking for more money. Very clear that that's my love language. But it was a light bulb for me. Like, wait, people are out here negotiating salaries, negotiating their packages, negotiating where they want to work. That's the thing. I didn't know that that was a thing before. Right. And so, number one, I think it could be education. There are some women that don't even know that they have the possibility to negotiate their salary. So that could be one thing. But yes, I'm very passionate about it. So much so that there have been times in my career, if I'm interviewing a candidate, and specifically if it's a woman, and she does not bring up the salary or bring up the range or negotiate, I will mention it. I will absolutely mention the fact that if she did negotiate her salary, like as we're walking to the elevator, I have said before, great job at your negotiation of your salary, like great job at doing that. And the reason you want to do that is because it can be taboo. It's scary to negotiate salary. A lot of people are scared to lose the opportunity. If I negotiate my salary, are they going to walk away from me? What's going to happen? I'll share another little fun tidbit. A lot of times it's generational too. I remember the first time I negotiated my salary, I was driving, not the first time I negotiated it, but the first time I negotiated it, and last time with my mother in the passenger seat of the car as I was doing it. And the recruiter was coming through the speaker, the Bluetooth was connected to the car, and I'm having the conversation. And my mom was in the passenger side, like, don't do that, don't ask for that, that's too much. And I'm just like, oh, it's cool, like it's all right, it's fine. And I remember the recruiter saying, okay, we'll have to go back and get it cleared and we'll get back to you. And I was just silent for a moment, and I said, okay. And so I hung up the phone, and my mom goes, are they going to call you back? How do you know they're going to call you back? And there was a thing there, and I'm like, no, sometimes you have to go for additional approvals. It's the way that this works. It's okay. And so sometimes it's education, sometimes it's just not knowing that there's capacity to do that, and sometimes it's just fear, and other times it could just be this overwhelming sense of gratefulness where it's just like, I'm just happy to be here, so I'll take the first offer. And that's not necessarily doing anyone any favors either.
Well, it's kind of like, those are great stories. I especially like the one about your mom, because it really speaks to the generational pieces. But there are, there's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where we're like, women don't negotiate, and, all these stats. And believe me, I shared one too. And part of me feels like, how can we role model, like you're doing, to younger women or to people in our families? It can even be older women, that it's okay to break money silence. It's okay to have these conversations, whether it's about negotiation or something else. And so I'm curious, Mindy, you're a financial planner and you see all different types of folks. What are the types of conversations that you see other people struggle with? And more importantly, how do you help them start to engage in these conversations? Like, what can not our panelists, but our listeners, what can they actually do to start talking more openly and honestly, whether it's someone, to someone like you, or whether it's a friend or family member?
Yeah, it's a good question. And my answer is, I know it sounds simple when I just say it, but I know it's difficult. It's just start talking about it. Just start somewhere. whether someone you trust or love or know, and it's someone close to you, maybe in your circle, or you want to talk to somebody just random, stranger. Sometimes it's more comfortable not to ask someone who's close to you about financial questions. So maybe you want to just call a financial advisor and start asking questions. And I know someone in the chat said it's difficult to find an advisor when you don't have, maybe you don't want to invest the money with them. You just need some financial help. And maybe you just call the Savvy Ladies hotline and ask some questions and get that started. But just start somewhere, and you can be as direct as, hey, so-and-so, you're a good friend, just wondering what your salary is. What do you make? How much did you make? How long have you been making that direct? Or ask the question, did you negotiate your salary when you started at your company? How did that conversation go? Why didn't you negotiate salary? What you might find is that whoever you're talking to, if it's someone who you're close with, they might be as confused as you are or as uncertain as you are if you're feeling those things. And you can commiserate on that and help each other figure out what the next step is to move forward. Or you'll find that there's a tip or suggestion that they have for you that they've learned over time. But until we start talking about these things, we're not going to get past it. And you just have to start somewhere. It's uncomfortable. I'm a financial planner, and I still have challenges talking about money, especially with my spouse. It's difficult to talk about money. So these things exist. And even when you call a professional or an advisor who's been doing this for a long time, they themselves might have the same challenges. So it might feel intimidating, but we're all really here to help and point you in the right direction. So again, I'll just repeat, just start somewhere, just take that jump.
I love those pieces of advice. I'd love other panelists to jump in. Is there a tip or two or a conversation starter that you have can build on what Mindy's saying?
Yeah, I had to jump in because I was thinking about for both Mindy and Nina, your story. So the first time I negotiated my salary, I knew they were going to give me an offer, and I knew I needed to negotiate because I hadn't negotiated before in my other jobs. And I was like, that was a mistake. I have to say something. I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I have to say a different number, and I don't know if I can actually say these words out loud. So, and I was in New York. I was like literally on the street, like commuting or something. And she's like, Asia, they're going to call you. So like, what's the number? And let's say it out loud. So I sat there on a street with my mom saying the number out loud to her over and over and over again. And she's like, okay, well, what if they say this? And what if they say that? And she just kind of, I did not grow up her talking to me about money. And I don't know where this came from, but she's like, okay, you have to say the number, let's practice. So I'm going to give that tip as well. Like when you are negotiating and you feel like you can't even like squeak out the words to say what the number is, practice. And Mindy, I love that you mentioned like sometimes even as people who work in this, sometimes we need it too. And I have a negotiation on Friday and I'm listening to what Nina said. And I'm like, you're right, I have to say the number. Like I had 3 numbers, my high number, what I actually want, and what I like, my like drop dead, I cannot go any lower than this number. And I was like, why am I balking at saying the high number? And I was until this very, like right now in this moment, I'm like, oh no, we're saying that high number. So I want everyone to know that it happens to us too, but you just have to practice and build up that confidence to say it, even though sometimes you're like, is that okay? Yes, it's fine. And probably double it.
Can I just add something, Kathleen?
Yeah.
It's interesting when we talk about money and finances, because it feels like, I think it was Manisha was talking about, there's no education about personal finance that we learn about. We might be fortunate enough to have loved ones around us who've talked about finances and money, and you've learned from them. But we don't really learn about it. And what I find, sometimes people come to me and they think their questions are not good questions. They feel stupid asking a question, a simple question like, what's a will, or what's a stock or bond? But it's not stupid to not know those questions. I'm an expert in the field, and sometimes I don't know the answer to some things, and I have to go to someone to find out. But also, you're coming to us because we want to help you and we want to educate you. And I don't know your field, and I don't know what you do, and I wouldn't be able to do half of those things. It doesn't come naturally just to know about money and finances. You have to learn about it. You have to ask questions. It's not an innate knowledge that we have. And I think that's a misconception. I don't know where it's come from, but it's a mixed misconception that I've seen a lot of people have.
And I just want to jump in. I saw in the chat, someone said they hadn't negotiated for their salary in the beginning for their job. I don't want people to think that that's the only time you can negotiate, because I was in a job and I sat next to a gentleman, a coworker, when we were having drinks one night after a big project. And I said, I'm really confused. We were about the same age. We had the exact same job. And I said, you have this big new apartment, a new car, blah, blah, blah. I said, I just don't get it. And he said, well, we all make X. Well, I was not making X. So what I realized, I said, oh yeah, but the next day, back then we had paper paychecks. So I took my paper paycheck into the director and said, I understand that there's probably been a clerical error on my salary, and I'm just going to leave it here so you can get it corrected, because I'm sure this fine company would never discriminate against a woman for doing the exact same job. So I'll just pick it up next week. Thank you and have a good night. And it was fixed. But today, many years, decades later, I would have asked for the back pay, right? I mean, that's the difference. But please don't think you only get one shot to negotiate.
And you don't have to be perfect in your negotiation. I teach negotiation classes and I coach on it. And I find that everything that's been said is valid. But that it's practice. And Nina, to go back, I don't know, your first negotiation, was it as good as what you would negotiate today, or your skills are as good? It's a muscle, right, that you build up.
It's a muscle. I would say a tip to take away is lead with value, not the money. So lead with your value proposition, what you bring, kind of restate that to whomever you're speaking to, whether the hiring manager or the recruiter. And by the way, when you start to hear yourself say the value proposition or your value proposition and what you bring to the table, you will start to build that confidence to ask for the number that you have. That, as to Asia's point, the number that you have been practicing and rehearsing, as you speak to your value, you'll be able to do that. Now, here's the catch. Now, once you say that and you negotiate and you spoke to that value, when you're in the role, you have to deliver at that point, right? Because now they're paying you high dollar amount. And so the expectation is that you follow through. But with all of it, I would say, so to your point, Kathleen, with my first negotiation, it was just like, okay, I'm just going to stick to the number. This is the number. As I became more seasoned at it, it's really just leading with value, restating that value, and then speaking to the money. Becomes a much easier transition.
Well, it's like any muscle that you build up. So learning to talk about money, having conversations about money. I know we've focused more on negotiations, which is certainly a hot button issue. Whether it's you're struggling with a partner and having that type of conversation, or just talking to your financial advisor. It could be a variety of different types of conversations. I think the advice to just dare to speak up, pick a conversation that feels least threatening. Don't set yourself up to go into the hardest one first, and then just chip away at it and know that that's something you will build over time. Nina just mentioned the word confidence, which brings us to kind of this next C of confidence. It takes time to build up confidence, whether, financial confidence, confidence to negotiate, confidence to know who to hire on your finance team. So let's delve into confidence a little bit, because I really think when you look at the research and you look at what is out there around confidence, part of what helps women be more confident is getting education. And this is an education to the level where you have to be able to do Nina or Mindy's or Manisha's or Barbara's job. Asia and I are a little bit of a unicorn, so there's education for that as well. It's really about getting enough education that you know who to hire, who to communicate with, who to ask questions with. And financial confidence can really be a superpower. So let's go to Mindy again, if you don't mind. Let's go to you. Tell us why financial confidence is so important. And then we'll open it up for other panelists to comment as well.
Yep. I would say this is a great question. Financial confidence, in my mind, is directly linked to financial decision making. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of fear, anxiety, and uncertainty around finances. And when that's the case with any topic, making an important decision is really difficult to do. And generally speaking, so I'm not a financial therapist. My background is in psychology. So there's an overlay with a lot of what I do. And this would be, maybe Asia would agree with me or disagree, we may use a different term, but it's avoidance technique that we would use in many cases here, because, you know, it's a tough topic to talk about. We might just throw our hands up and say, you know what, I'm just not going to think about it. I'm going to put it at the bottom of my list, my very, very long to-do list, and I'll get back to it. And then we don't get back to it. And it has real implications. And real implications on your financial plan over time. And I've seen this in a couple of examples I just want to share with the group. The first one is very common. I'm sure others on the panel have seen this one. I'll have a client come to me and we're talking about their financial plan, and we talk about retirement, and they'll say, oh, I have a retirement plan. I set it up with my employer when I first started. I don't know what I'm invested in. I don't know how much I'm contributing to it. I just did what they said, and then I left it. And by not making a decision to go back and review what you're contributing to the plan and making a decision to change that contribution, you may not be saving enough to retire when you want to retire and then support yourself for 30 years beyond that into retirement. You may have investments that are too aggressive for your risk tolerance or how long you have left to invest, or you might be too conservative and you're not earning what we would call a required rate of return to be able to get to that retirement point and have enough saved up. So that has real implications. And another example is I work with a lot of clients who are in the LGBTQ community, and estate planning is a very important factor for our community. There's across the nation, we're seeing discrimination against queer folks as well as, and in particular, trans folks, again, about doing medical procedures, right? And so if we're seeing that, when you're incapacitated or you pass away, you want to make sure that you have protections in place for yourself and your loved ones. So if you're in the hospital and you're incapacitated and your same-sex partner or spouse or another loved one is supposed to make medical decisions for you, you need to have a medical power of attorney in place that is set up so that the doctor cannot refuse talking to your spouse or loved one about what decisions are going to be made for you. And then if you think about having a minor child who's going to be the guardian and who's listed inside of your will as the guardian for your minor child when you pass away, or if there's a second parent, and they also pass away. In the queer community, we have our blood relatives. We also have our chosen family members, and sometimes it might be a chosen family member who is going to be the guardian of your child, and or your wishes are that they are the guardian of your child. It depends what state you live in, but the court decides who's going to be the guardian of your child. And what you're putting in your will allows that to be more likely to be honored. But if you don't have that set up, there might be a family member who you don't want to be the guardian. You may even be estranged from that family member, and they're now caring for your child. So coming back and making decisions about your financial plan, putting an estate plan in place, and doing all that, it's very important for the success and to protect what you've earned and worked so hard for. So gaining that confidence, to talking about money, gaining confidence, and then going to someone to help you make these decisions has a long-term effect.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I know there's a lot of questions in the chat around books and recommendations, whether it's about personal finance or negotiation. We will definitely get some of those books out there. Anybody on the panel can certainly recommend books that they love on any of the 4 C's. But let's talk and bounce off of what Mindy said. I would love, and I'm going to let you decide who speaks up this time, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about tips on building financial confidence. Because basically what Mindy said is it's really important to have it. Here's why it's important, because it affects your decisions. You don't have to go it alone. You can work with a financial planner. But how do we start building up that confidence if we're someone who's on this particular call feeling like, oh, I don't have much. I don't know how I can get there. Manisha, take yourself off mute.
I think the single most important thing that I just can't emphasize enough is having confidence does not mean knowing all the answers. And I think you've heard that from all of us in various different ways. I'm turning 53 this summer, and during my 30 years in the industry, I swear to God, there has not been a single day that's gone by where there hasn't been something that I didn't know the answer to. And so what I've noticed with women is that we tend not to allow ourselves to feel confident until we feel like we know all the answers just right. Whereas men seem to have no problem feeling confident even when they don't know the answers at all. And I just want to say that the single best way to start building confidence is to ask questions. And I know it sounds so cliche, there are no dumb questions, but I am not kidding you. I just want to tell a brief anecdote. My ex-husband was 20 years older than me. And so it was really interesting because his friends just happened to be 10 or so years older than him. So I was getting this vision into a very different world. And when we would go socialize, the men would be in one room and the women would be in another room. And it was very kind of old school. But I loved to head into the room with the men as they were like doing their business talk. And they assumed I knew nothing. And I'd listen like a fly, and they would be saying the most ridiculous things to each other, like a lawyer talking to an architect, talking to an engineer about their portfolios. And I mean, the stuff that they were saying made as much sense as, oh yeah, I took my nose off this morning and decided I was going to stick it on my left elbow. What about you? And so just because you're hearing other people talk with confidence doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. And just because you don't know even maybe how exactly to ask the question doesn't mean that you can't feel confident that you are starting to gain that knowledge bit by bit by bit. So that's what I want to say.
It's an important message. You know, the only way to build confidence is to be a little vulnerable and to ask questions. I think one of many women's superpowers is the ability to get in community and have conversations and learn through conversations. And so are there any particular resources out there before we move to our last C on confidence?
Yep. The Confidence Code. This is a must read. The Confidence Code. And that's all I'm going to say. Go to Amazon, look it up. It's a game changer.
Anyone else on the panel? Because
Sure,
Manisha feels
Kathleen.
strongly about that. She's confident in that recommendation.
I think, taking those small steps, asking the questions, but then actually taking small steps to start building your confidence. So whether it's checking your checkbook, balance your checkbook, start putting money away from each paycheck, watching that number grow. All the little things you can control, start controlling. When you go on Amazon and say, I don't need to buy X or Y, choosing to have that control and say, no, I'd rather invest that money or save that money. So stopping to understand that there are things we can control in our lives. And if we can own that, we can start building our own confidence.
Excellent.
I would
Yep.
also like just piggyback on that and just, from the therapist point of view, like almost reverse engineer it. Like, why do you feel like you aren't confident with money? Like, why don't you have financial confidence? And whatever the list of excuses is, let's problem solve that. So a lot of times people are like, I'm bad at math. It's actually really not math, it's numbers. You don't have to do the math. We have beautiful computers that will do it for you. Like if it's education or wanting to learn something, or who do I talk to? Like there are tons of resources that I think are happening in the chat, and Savvy Lady has them. And also like your panelists, right? Like you can go anywhere and start taking the steps towards the information that you need to start building that confidence. So reverse engineer it and listen to yourself and listen to the reasons why you are saying you can't be confident or you're not confident.
And if you continue to struggle in that area, connect with a professional, an advisor, a therapist, even a friend that has more confidence to kind of get a little bit of coaching around that. And I think that's where community comes in. So we're going to move to the last C. I see some questions coming in, and we'll try to save some time to get some answers to those. But when we think about community, we think about how do we come together and learn more about money jointly. Certainly, this is a great example of how you can do it. And Savvy Ladies is really great at being able to, create these forums. But I guess, when thinking about community, it's really thinking about what are the different types of communities there, and how can people who are on the panel kind of help you think about community differently. So I want to start with Barbara. From your perspective as a planner, why is it important to surround yourself with support, and what do you recommend in terms of creating a community?
Well, from a professional community, if you have a financial advisor, an accountant, a CPA or an accountant, and an estate tax attorney or an estate planning attorney, those are three professionals that are very helpful to have the conversation so that you understand your situation as far as your taxes and estate planning. So everyone out there, it's the biggest thing that I see missing, and that is having a will or trust in place, or even having beneficiaries designated on your 401ks or your IRAs. So it's understanding and having those people with whom you can speak to ask the harder questions, such as, I want to leave the money to my child. Well, you can't, from the standpoint that the child can't receive the money if they're a minor, right? So you have to leave it to a custodian, to an adult custodian for the benefit of the child. So there are certain techniques that people such as myself or Mindy or Nina has a whole team of people as well that can assist in putting all of that together. So the community is not only those professionals, but then let's face it, ladies, we all have girlfriends. We talk about this, right? So we say, what did you do? Who do you know? Who would you refer? Who do you like working with? If there was someone they didn't like working with, I want to know that as well. Why not? Mm-hmm. Was it bad advice, or was it just a personality conflict? So we are responsible, just as we're responsible for building our own friendships, we're responsible for building our professional communities. And advisors have lots of referrals they can give to you. You can have everyone in the same room. You can meet with them. You can all be on Zoom and have a conversation. But please understand that you are responsible for deciding to build that community. We all want to help, but you need to ask the question or ask for the help.
So there's the professional community. There's also, girlfriends or informal, non-professionals, for lack of a better word.
And we have Savvy Ladies here, right?
Yeah,
So
Savvy Ladies is an absolutely great example.
That's a community.
But what I'm thinking about, and I'm going to go to Mindy on this because you mentioned being a member of the LGBTQ community. If you are somebody who's in a community that has experienced such discrimination, or there's fear, maybe it's women of color who fear that they're going to be discriminated or judged, just by this color of their skin. It's like, how do you find somebody, whether it's a professional, let's say a professional, how do you find a safe professional in that case? And we'll start with Mindy, and we certainly can expand it.
Yeah, so it's similar to Barbara, ask those around you. It's funny because, not funny, I guess, but asking for help is challenging. I'm guilty of that. And when you're talking about something that's so sensitive, it's even harder to ask for help. So while on one hand, it's hard to ask for help, on the other hand, many of us, myself included, are quick to help others and to share ideas and to share resources. Simple example, if someone compliments my shirt, my response is, thanks, I got it from Marshall's. They have a whole new inventory. It's really great. You should go check it out. And now I've just suggested that they go buy a shirt. Or a new restaurant that I loved, and I know I have a foodie friend who's been looking for a new restaurant. I'm going to tell them about it. So when we find women-owned businesses, queer-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses, for example, many of us are apt to share those resources with our friends because we want to support the community. When we're talking about finances, again, there's so much emotion tied to it and such a sensitivity that it feels different. We're not sharing the resources like we are with other areas of our life. So going to your loved ones, and I agree, Kathleen, with your support group, it's professionals. It's also people that your loved ones that you know and trust, because we do all share these ideas. We should start including financial discussions in our sharing circle. If you have someone who you trust and know, ask them who they're working with. Have they ever talked to a financial planner? Have they not? They might have a suggestion for you. Again, like I mentioned earlier, they might not have a suggestion for you. Now you're both thinking about another friend who might also talk to a financial advisor, and then they can help you. So it's really I would go word of mouth. You can also go to resources like Savvy Ladies. There's a lot of other resources out there. If you go online and search for LGBTQ financial planners, for example, there will be financial advisors that pop up. I get a lot of outreach from various clients in different situations. And when they come to me, if I'm not able to help them, I make sure that they leave better off than when they came to me. And then I'll also introduce them to someone else who can help them. Because I work, for example, under an assets under management model, like someone mentioned in the chat that it's difficult to find. I know hourly planners who can work with, who are in the LGBTQ community or who are proactive allies, so that you know it's a safe space, and so that you know that they may be better equipped to handle your planning needs. So reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out to someone, because we can put you in touch with someone else. We have a community of people that we know that we can also share with you.
And I guess the thing I'm going to jump off with that is the idea of trusting your gut. So you get a referral or you meet with somebody. If something's off for you, even if it worked for your friend, it's okay. Just trust women have a great gut instinct if we listen to it. Often that takes years to figure out, oh, I should listen to this. So if your gut's off, there's many other professionals, but I love those ideas of kind of working your network, asking those questions. That's practicing, communication. That's building up your confidence in your resources. Before we kind of start to wind down, Nina, I want to talk to you a little bit about a personal board of directors, or I often think about it as a personal advisory board around money. Tell us a little bit about what that is and how you think that can be helpful in terms of creating a community of support.
Yeah, so personal board of directors, personal advisor, circle of trust, however you want to call it, right? There should be people in your life that you can lean on for advice around money. It should be people that you trust, people who maybe they have a financial situation that you aspire to have, right? Maybe they have a financial background. It can include your financial advisor if you have a close relationship with that person. But these are the people that you talk to about your thoughts about money, where you are in your journey, your career, your negotiation, your offers that are on the table. These are the people that you practice that run through with. And again, that could be a family members. Like I have, if I think about my circle of trust, or I affectionately call them my coin collective, right? But the people that I talk to are girlfriends of mine who work in the industry. I have my mom as a part of my circle of trust or my coin collective. And I have a family member that's a part of it, and that family member has no financial background, but is just so unafraid to tell me the truth and tell me like it is, like tell it like it is. You need people like that, like the live wires that aren't afraid to tell you like, hey, you're thinking about this the wrong way. It may be a former boss. It may be someone that you met throughout your career. It's just really people that you trust and who have a certain knowledge. By the way, they should have ideas or perspectives that differ from yours as well. So it should be a good mix of that. You don't need an amen corner. You need people who are going to help you advance in your money journey. So again, some folks with experience, people who are truth tellers that you trust. They can have a financial background. You should have some people who have financial background in that circle of trust, but also people who don't have a financial background are perfectly fine because they can help to balance it and give you a real world perspective that you may not get anywhere else. And so again, these are the people that you talk to about your money, career opportunities that may be on the table, your goals, your aspirations, and they also hold you accountable to doing what you set out to do.
I love that. I love that. I cannot believe how fast the time went. I knew it was going to go fast, but it went faster. What I would like to do in closing is I want the panelists to think a little bit about kind of what is one action step they encourage the people on this call to take around the 4 C's. So I want you just to be thinking about that right now. While I ask all of you who are on the call, remember we rated your financial confidence 1 to 10, or your financial well-being 1 to 10. What I would want you to think about, and it's okay if it hasn't shifted, is through listening and being a member of this community tonight and learning about culture, communication, confidence, and community. Has your financial well-being increased or decreased or stayed the same? So even if it increased just a quarter of a point, so you were 3, now you're a 3.25, or if it increased 1 point, or if you went down a little because it raised some doubts, that's okay. What I'd love to see is just put in the chat just the word increase, decrease, or same, and let's see if having a conversation and working in community has an impact on financial well-being. I didn't know how that was going to go, so I'm liking that I'm seeing lots of increases, and it's making all of our panelists smile because it's what we do. Same but feel better, that's valid. And I think the more we can engage in these conversations, the more that we can just show the things we know and also admit to the things that we don't know. Each and every one of us on this panel can admit that we don't know all things about finance. We know our area of expertise, and we probably at this point in our careers and life have enough financial confidence to know, and a community to know who to ask to fill in those blanks. So I'm so thrilled that people feel that their financial well-being has increased. I encourage you to continue to attend these sessions with Savvy Ladies. They're wonderful, and I always enjoy when I get to participate in them. And so to end tonight, before I turn it back over to Judy, I just want to ask the panelists, if you could leave the audience with one final thought on how to improve their financial well-being, what would it be? And this is going to be a speed round, so we're going to go quick. I'm just going to call on people to facilitate this process. Let's start with Nina.
Talk to someone, find a financial advisor, and start.
Excellent. Barbara?
Don't compare yourself to anyone else on social media.
I love it. Mindy?
Just educate yourself. Go read about retirement plans, your 401k, something simple just to get you started. And I'll highlight what Nina said too.
Okay. How about you, Manisha?
Don't forget that sometimes it's about the financial tactics, and sometimes it's about your emotional attitudes about money. And if you want to have a kind of a fun little quiz or way to play around to kind of figure out where you are on that, go to moneyzenquiz.com. I've got a fun little tool up there to help
Cool.
you see.
I love quizzes. Asia, what is your one speed round tip?
Talk about your feelings, talk about your feelings about money. Like if you are dealing with debt, if you're dealing with, I don't know what to do, if you're just feeling uncomfortable, if you're crushing it and you're uncomfortable with that, like whatever the feelings are, talk about your feelings, journal them, get them out some way, shape, or form.
Awesome. And I'm going to add one as the moderator, dare to break money silence, dare to have one conversation about money that you wouldn't have had before you attended our event tonight. I want to thank each and every one of the panelists. This has been a wonderful conversation, quite inspiring for myself and obviously increasing people's well-being on the line and hopefully for people who watch the recording at a later date. My name is Kathleen Burns Kingsbury. My company is KBK Wealth Connection, and I believe in breaking money silence. So this has been a thrill. I'd like to turn it back over to Judy to just close us out this evening.
Well, thank you. I will close us out and share with everyone because there was lots of questions around the helpline. So this is our helpline. It is now an app available in the Apple Store and Google Play Store. You can find it and submit your question, and we are here for you. I think that is my big ask is use Savvy Ladies. It's a free financial resource. Use us, and we have an amazing community of volunteers who want to give back and help you find your money, get you into a positive money mindset. So thank you for joining us this evening. Everyone have a lovely, lovely evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Take
much.
care.
It was really good. Really good.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Good
Yeah,
night.
thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It was wonderful. The chat was terrific. Lots of great information. So we have gathered everything. We will share the recording. I can probably stop recording.